federal government launched 3 months of consultations today on proposed new rules around assisted reproduction, including surrogacy and sperm and egg donors. But it's still illegal to pay a surrogate to carry a child in Canada. Liberal MP Anthony Housefather wants to further broaden the rules. Why is he not satisfied with his own government's approach to this issue? Joining me now in Montreal, the chair of the House Justice Committee, who has a private member's bill on changing Canada's surrogacy laws, Anthony Housefather. Hi, Mr. Housefather. Nice to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming in. Do you feel that the changes, the regulatory changes announced by the government today, or at least open for consultations, go far enough?
No, I mean, the changes that were introduced today, at least on the payment part, is something that was supposed to be part of the Act 14 years ago, and I applaud the current government for finally doing what they were supposed to do 14 years ago. But I think at this point we have seen that the Act doesn't work for anyone concerned. It doesn't work for parents. It doesn't work for surrogates. It doesn't work for donors. It doesn't work for the doctors or the lawyers. So no, unfortunately, what's being proposed today won't solve the problem. It's only decriminalization that will solve the problem.
How do you know that those problems exist? Can you describe, I guess, what the problem is?
Sure. Well, let's look at sperm. You can't pay for Canadian sperm. So 20 years ago, we used to have 25 sperm banks in the country, and almost all the sperm used in Canada was from Canadians. Today, we import 98% of our sperm, and the U.S. donors are paid. They don't follow our health regulations, and it's perfectly legal to import that sperm, and that's what we use in Canada. The same is true with eggs. Now there's more and more frozen eggs. Over 50% of the eggs used in Canada are imported from the United States, where, again, the donors are paid. So we're doing indirectly what you're not allowed to legally do directly, and it's driven out the industry from Canada, and it leads to higher costs for Canadians, more complications for Canadians. And the same is true with surrogates. By making it illegal to pay or offer to pay a surrogate except for unknown expenses, you, for those who do it in Canada, create a great sense of uncertainty the entire time. You don't know if you can buy flowers for your surrogate. You don't know if you can pay to lease a car for your surrogate. And you send people to the United States where surrogates can be paid and make it more complicated for them. It just doesn't work. The whole process doesn't work.
So what you're suggesting is that payment for surrogates be decriminalized. Is that correct?
Exactly. And then provinces can decide, do you want to have a cap? Do you want to have no cap and just have market forces? Do you want to only allow expenses, but allow expenses only in a more flexible way where you don't have to prove receipts? But in the end, what I conclude, and what I think almost all Canadians I've spoken to conclude, you should not be sent to prison for up to 10 years because you offer to pay someone to start a family for you. That is ridiculous.
So why hasn't your government concluded that?
Well, I think it wasn't an issue that the government ran on, and I think it's me and people who are directly involved that are bringing this issue to Parliament for the first time. It's not something that people have heard about a lot, and more as I talk to my Liberal colleagues, as I talk to my Conservative colleagues, Elizabeth May in the Green Party supports the bill. As I talk to senators, people are becoming aware of an issue they weren't aware of. And there are more and more families with women starting families at a later age. There's more fertility issues with more and more gay couples that want to have babies. There's more people who need surrogacy services and donor services. And it's an issue that just has become explosive over the last few years, and I'm hopeful that by me educating people, by the community of people who are involved educating people, every party will support this bill and will move it in the next Parliament. On
the subject of support, who do you for sure have support from, and where does the bill stand right now?
So I have support from a lot of the members of the Liberal caucus. The Liberal Women's Caucus has been very supportive of the bill, including Anita Vandenbeld, who was the past president. I have support from Marilyn Gladue, who's the Conservative health critic, and a number of my colleagues in the Conservative Party. I have support from Elizabeth May. I have support from a number of senators who we've talked to about the bill. And I think that this is something that will rally all parties because it's just a classical idea of liberalism that you don't criminalize people wanting to start a family. We should embrace people that want to start a family and want to give love to a child and not turn them into criminals because by mistake they offer to pay something they shouldn't have offered to pay in Canada.
And where does the bill stand right now?
So I've introduced the bill in Parliament. It's at its second reading stage. Unfortunately, my number is a high number, and I can't see the bill getting through both the House of Commons and the Senate before the next election, but I promise you that I'll be working hard to have all parties, whoever forms government, and I hope, of course, it's the Liberals, bring forward a bill in the next Parliament. If not, I will again bring it forward if I have the luck to be re-elected and the voters of Mount Royal place confidence in me. And if not, we'll have somebody else bring it forward. But in the end, this has to happen. Decriminalization has to occur. And I think that's the way society is moving. 20 years ago, you didn't have gay families, you didn't have as many non-traditional families as you have now, and you need help to start a family in those situations, and we should embrace that.
There are two lines of critique to decriminalization. I want to get your response to both. The first would be, does it unfairly advantage those with money? I mean, there are a lot of people struggling with fertility of different means. I know you talk about provinces setting a cap, but essentially, if you're going to pay a surrogate and you're able to pay them, you have an advantage over someone who can't.
That is true. Again, the cost of sperm and eggs in Canada is higher because we import it from the United States, where donors are paid anyways, and then we have to pay import. So that doesn't work on the donation side. It would actually be a lower price in Canada if we could pay people at market rates. And with respect to surrogacy, the provinces would have all of the latitude to set caps. So I think it's possible to figure out what a reasonable amount is. In Belgium, for example, it's 30,000 euro. But I think what the real end result is by criminalizing. Yeah, but by criminalizing, right? By criminalizing, we stop the provinces from actually thinking about what regulations they should impose because they just say it's a criminal issue.
Right.
And I think so. I think there's ways to solve that issue and continue to decriminalize.
And what about those who say women's bodies shouldn't be commercialized, that paying for surrogacy will leave women open to exploitation?
So two things. Number one, those people don't believe surrogacy should exist at all, and we're way beyond that in Canada because we've allowed surrogacy for decades. Second of all, it's funny, those same people are the ones that would be the most offended if anybody dared to say that a woman shouldn't have the choice of what to do with her body in other circumstances, like the right to terminate a pregnancy, but then they want the state to block a woman of sound mind and full intelligence from deciding to be a surrogate or a donor. I don't think that makes sense. And finally, all the studies that I've seen from the United States show that you do not have women who are vulnerable, who are the ones who are surrogates. You have agencies that screen. You have mostly middle-class women with college educations who are in a stable relationship with at least one child who are the ones who are surrogates. So
would we need that kind of structure here as well?
I would want the provinces to establish structure where everybody who enters into that kind of an agreement has independent legal advice, independent medical advice, has agencies that are legal. Today, you can't pay an agency to introduce the parents to the surrogate. It's illegal in Canada, again, so we do indirectly what we can't do directly, and it means agencies aren't properly regulated and they're not doing their jobs as effectively as they could. We should have regulated agencies the same way we have regulated adoption agencies, and we should be doing this properly. And with the proper regulations, you'd make sure that you would both protect the vulnerable and make sure that all of those involved can get what they want out of this, which is a healthy child and a happy child with loving parents who are helped by loving surrogates or loving donors.
Okay, I'm out of time. I have to leave it there, but thank you so much, Mr. Housefather.
Thank you so much for having me.